Mm-hmm. Good morning and welcome to this presentation where I'm going to present a little bit about the Canvas API, and we'll come to what an API is in a moment. And then I'll present what we have built to automate our courses, especially the correcting part of the courses. As it's there, the Canvas API can help the most. So today's agenda is going to be APIs in general. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what an API is, and then exemplified by the Canvas API. Then we are going to talk a little bit about tools. And then I'm going to do a little bit of live coding of a to-do list in Canvas. If you have any questions during the presentation, just raise your hand. We'll take the questions as we go along. So first of all, what is an API? This is the documentation for the Canvas LMS API. An API is an application programming interface. And normally, when we interact with Canvas, we do it through the web browser, a graphical user interface, and we click a lot of buttons and fill in a lot of text and things like that. An application programming interface allows us to, instead of doing it with a mouse and in a graphical user interface, we can do it with the aid, in this case, of requests, or we could do it with programming. So what this allows us to do is that we, for instance, if we want to see all of the students in a course, we could send a request from our computer to this API, and then we will get a structured result back where we can see all of the students in a course. So instead of clicking all these buttons, we can then write small programs that fetches data and changes data in Canvas. So instead of clicking all the buttons and correcting in that way, we can now automate it instead by sending requests, changing data, and things like that. So this is the API documentation. It's not really a poster child for documentation, but it's there, and it shows us all of the methods, functions, all of these URLs that we can use to either fetch data or change data. So in the left-hand corner over there, we can see that we're probably going to recognize some of these headlines. So we have admins and we have accounts and we have different data types that we can fetch. So for instance, if we want to go into the assignments API, this is an uppgift in Canvas, we can see how we, for instance, can, these are all the data types and all the data that we can get with an API. But what we're going to scroll down to is, for instance, if we want to delete an assignment, we can send a request to this URL. If we want to list all the assignments, we can do it by sending a request to this URL and so forth. So to sum it up, we have a lot of URLs that we can, in our program, send requests to. We can then get data, or we can change data by sending requests to these URLs. So that's more or less the entire Canvas API is built in this way. And most other APIs are built that way as well. So what have we built with these tools? Let's have a look. A lot of the tools is built as what's called booklets. A booklet is a bookmark in your web browser. And what it allows us to do, we can have a look here. It allows us to, instead of going to a URL, normally if you would have Aftonbladet as a bookmark, you click that, you'll go to an URL. But a booklet allows us to execute what's called JavaScript, the programming language of the web, and we can then execute it inside the page that we're on. So if we go to, for instance, this is the course that I'm giving at the moment, and then I can go and have a look at one of these students. And Hanna has handed something in here. If we want to have a look at her early assignments, so if for instance, we want to see her other hand-ins, we can open up this little box, which shows all of the assignments in the course, and then we can easily go back and forth between assignments. Normally, if you want to do this in Canvas, you have to click around 8 or 9 times. So instead here we minimize it to 2. If we instead want to see all her hand-ins in the same view as we had as before, we can do it in this way. So we have all of her hand-ins. Normally, when our students hand in, they write what's called a reflection text. And at the end, we do a formative assessment of all of the texts, and then all the text would be shown here. So very easy way to get all the texts, fetch them, see them at the same time without having the need to click around 8 or 9 times for each student or for each assignment. So one more tool that we have built is when we get into correcting them. Normally you would do it by assigning a grade here and then writing in this way too small box that's down here. But instead, you probably want to do it in this way, where we get much nicer, larger box. We can then write that you did well on your assignment, and then we can insert the feedback down here. One further advantage is that we can then add standard text if we want the students, for instance, to have these links to how you complete the assignment and things like that. And so this is not what I wrote. This is a standard text that we have added for this particular assignment for this particular course. It's a very good way, I think, to show the students what, for instance, what type of feedback they can expect in this course, what type of, for instance, this is the way we grade, this is the way we do things in this course. General information. For instance, you could also have like 3-week, the 3-week upprop, 3 veckors uppropet, information about that in these texts. So these are some of the advantages of using these booklets that actually execute JavaScript inside this page, fetches a bit of data, both through the API, but also just from the page, where you can fetch from different parts of the page. Some of the bigger things that we have done with the Canvas API is more automated types of correcting assignments. So this is my example of how you can do it. I'm just gonna do this, and then I have a bash script. It's a programming language that runs in the terminal. So when I run this script, which is a very long script, it fetches all assignments, all submissions from a specific course. It then creates a web page where I then can go and have a look at all the students that have handed in, what assignments they have handed in, and then links both to Canvas, where I have to correct the assignment, and to the handed in assignment that they have done through another program that's called Expo that we use in that course. So when I click here, I can directly go to the student's assignment. I don't have to open any links. I don't have to do anything manually in that regard. And then with my iPhone, I just beep, and then I get the app that the student have created in this course. And then I just close down and I go to Canvas and I correct it through the Retta box here, and I provide feedback to the students in an easy way. Yeah.
How do you, this sounds brilliant. It sounds really like, I'm currently correcting a lot, so I would need something like this. How does that work in practice? Like, are we supposed to do that? Can we code this? I didn't understand.
I'm going to do a bit of live coding in the end, so you can see one of these booklets, how I code together then, and then I'm going to show where we have shared all these booklets. They are available on what's called GitHub. So it's a place where you share code. And otherwise, you're just welcome to contact me and we'll figure something out. Okay. Yeah. So this is in many ways, a more basic way of doing grading. Andreas, which sits down there, has put my Captain Click system on steroids and have created what's called Umbridge. Umbridge is, well, she's a teacher, very strict teacher in Harry Potter. So we found it a very good name for our tool. We wanted a strict corrector, and Umbridge is run every 5 minutes. It's on a server somewhere in the sky. And what it does is that it fetches all of the submissions to all the assignments in a course. This course is that is used currently is the Python course. About 320 students started that course. And that's mainly the why we do all of these things, is that we have a lot of students. There's a lot of correcting involved. So what it does, it fetches all of the code. Then it runs what's called unit tests on the code. So small programs that test that the students have handed in correct code. And if the students have handed in correct code, it sets a PG grade, preliminärt godkänd, preliminary passed grade. The students have access to these unit tests, so they can run it throughout their development of these tasks, through the completion of the task. So they know, okay, I'll probably get a PG when I hand in. Well, but we want it
det blir nog bra.
So that
Jag har Emil i
Umbridge is
bakgrunden här
always
också, men det ska
strict
lösa sig.
teacher, so she's always correct. So what happens then when we get a PG?
Ja, och det var rätt så högt ljud faktiskt. Jag vet inte fan jag ska ta och sänka det, men jag hör dig. Ja. Vad gör du för något?
Ursäkta, det är någon som har mikrofon på nu.
PG grade. Andreas have handed in the PG grade, and then Umbridge is doing a little bit more than just setting the grade. For instance, it's adding a lot of comments, so you can the automatic correction system Umbridge has went through your hand in, something went wrong, you can see what went wrong, and you can inspect the files. But let's scroll down to the last parts here. On some dev. So we'll have the log file here. And then we'll have inspect all of the files that the students have handed in. So this is both for the students to see, but also for the teacher that is correcting. So we'll start by looking at the log file. And we can see here that what is happening when the test script is run. So we see that Andreas is not able to write correct code. It says here that he has done something, but otherwise it looks pretty okay that he has completed the assignments, and we can have a look at what's gone right and what's gone wrong. And then as a teacher, we can have a look at both the log file and what he has handed in then. So we can, for instance, look at the code quality or the code structure and do things like that to see how Andreas have completed this assignment. And this feeds then back into the feedback that we give to the students. And then we do, the final grade is done by the teacher then, also looking at the reflective text that Andreas has written here. And then we give either a passing or a non-passing grade. I see there's a couple of questions here. So I think I'm gonna jump ahead to the last part of the presentation, where I'm going to, first of all, get a API key, because we can't just start fetching all this data without being authenticated. And it's very important that we are authenticated. And when we get an API key, we can only access what we normally would be able to access in the graphical user interface. So when I get an API key, I go to my account and then settings. And then I scroll down, and here we see that there is approved integrations. And as you can see, there is a lot of Canvas Teacher for iOS. If you use the Canvas Teacher app, you get one of these API keys, and that's the way that the app works, is that it sends requests to this API. But then you can also generate new tokens. So let's do that. New token, and then write a comment here if you plan on doing more of these tools. It's very easy to get lost in which of the tools is this key or this token used for. So what we're going to do today is a to-do, and I'm just going to generate the token, and then I'm going to copy it from here. Like this, and then we're just going to paste it into the code here. And that's the last time you're going to see that token inside Canvas. If you lose it, you just delete it. And please don't share these tokens, as they work more or less like your combination of your email address and password, and you can access exactly the same amount of data by doing these, by using this token. So if you lose or if you share it with somebody, please delete it in there. Otherwise, Canvas is probably going to be a bit irritated on you. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to do a small to-do list. We're going to do it as a booklet. So we're going to use one of these bookmarks. And I know there is a to-do list here, but as you can see, there is about 77 more courses here. And as I'm part of a lot of courses throughout, what have we been using Canvas, 4 years now? There is always going to be a lot of here. So I'm not really want to use that. I instead want to get a to-do list, the assignments that need to be corrected for these 8 courses that are my favorites. So what we're going to do is that we're going to search for favorites. And as it turns out, there is a URL for that endpoint. And what it does is that it lists our favorite courses. Sounds good. So let's do that. So I'm going to take that URL, and then I'm going to paste that as well into the code that I'm doing. And as sharp-eyed of you can see, I have prepared a little bit. As a good TV cook, I have prepared just a little bit of code that will help us write out a box on the web page, like those texts that we did before. So we're going to have a favorite URL. And that's the URL. And then we're going to have const canvas auth. And we're going to have that as a string as well. And then we're going to just add in that way. So this is the way that Canvas expects us to get this token as a header field in the request that we're going to make. So we have a Canvas auth. That's the token that we got from Canvas. It's inserted there. And then we have the URL that we want to fetch the data from. So let's create a request to that URL using the fetch API in JavaScript. So we're going to do a response, and then we're going to use, and then we're going to create that response with the favorites URL. Like that. We need to add the header. So we're just going to do that in this way. Authorization, and we'll have canvas there. So now our little program is going to fetch the data from a favorites URL using the canvas auth string that we added. And then we're going to, from that, pass that into what's called JSON. I said earlier that the URL or the API is returning some structured data. And in this case, it's returning JSON data, which is just a structured format of data that we can then use to get the information that we want from. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Authorization. Otherwise, we would have spent like the next half hour trying to figure out why it's not working. Right, response.json. So we're just fetching the JSON data from the server, and we can then have a look at how that looks. Like that. So what I'm going to do is then take all of the code, I'm going to copy it, and then we're going to the web browser. We're going to create our new bookmark. We're going to give it a name. So in this case, we're going to call it to do. Then we're going to write JavaScript and then colon, and then we're just going to paste all of the code. And then we'll save. And then I'll open up the console, which shows error messages and things like that. And as we can see, there's a lot of things happening at Canvas. So we'll click to do. Unexpected token let. We get our first syntax error, so we'll have a look at that. Now, bold into purpose. And we'll try to run it again. Just wait for Canvas to load. And then we see that we have these 8 courses that we have here. We see that we get the name, we get the account ID, we get the ID, and things like that back from this URL that we fetched it from. And as I told, I'm also rendering this box that we are then later on going to fill with the assignments that we can be able to correct. So now we have the courses, and then we need to loop through them, iterate through them. So for each course, we're going to fetch all of the submissions, and then we're just gonna add that to that box, and then we're more or less done. So I'm just gonna render the box at the bottom, and then we're going to create what's called a for loop. So for let I equals 0 less than courses dot length. So this is looping through the length of the courses, and then we're just, for each iteration in the loop, we're just gonna get the course. So that course equals courses I. And then we can start doing what we want to do. So in this case, we're going to have a look at submissions. The submissions page in the Canvas API. And what we want to do here is then list submissions for multiple assignments. So we want to fetch that data. So we get from the courses, the course ID that we have asked. So we know that, for instance, the WebGL course has the ID 3952. And so we will, for each course, just loop through that. And then we'll need to get that URL. So in the same way that we did the request from the beginning, we're just going to create a submissions URL. Let's do it. And then we're just going to, in this case, substitute the course ID for the ID that we got from course. And we can do it in that way. And then we're just gonna fetch it. And then we're just going to copy authorization so we don't misspell it this time as well. And then we're just going to turn that response into our JSON as we did before. So now we have submissions, and that's for each course, we have a number of submissions, hopefully, and then we're just gonna put that in that box. So we're going to then create a course element. So we're just gonna add some kind of element to this box, which we have there. And then to that, we're going to, can do it like this. We only want to add that element if the length of submissions, the amount of assignments that we need to create or correct is bigger than 0. So that's actually something to correct. Like that. And then we are going to have courses dot course element. I'm going to add a just a header, so H2, and we're going to add the course name. And then we're going to add the number of assignments that we can correct and a link to that course. So we'll have like that, and then we'll have a link. And then we'll have that. And then we'll have a submissions length. So we know how many assignments that we are going to correct. We can put it here. And then just the link to the page. And we'll put it there. And then it will be that. We'll just have courses and then the courses ID. Like that, and then we just needed to add it to the box as the last element. So that was the last part of our little to-do list app here. So we're just gonna copy it, and hopefully when we change it in here, it will simply start working, hopefully. And so we're just gonna reload the page again. And then when we do to-do, as always, when we do things like that. We just can't fetch everything that we want to fetch from this submissions URL. And if we take a look in the documentation, we can see why. We want to say that we want from all students, and then we're going to say that we just want the submitted assignments. It seems that they're very afraid of just sending data to you, so you have to specify a lot of these URL things to just ensure that we get only the courses that we needed, or the submissions that we needed, or the students that we need. So we're going to add student IDs, and we're just gonna fetch them all. And then we're going to have the workflow state as submitted. So it's only the assignments that have been submitted and not corrected yet. So we're going to do it that way. Ready? to save and reload. And then hopefully not yet. Then we're going to just now I know why. We need to just await this one as well. Now it should work. Hopefully. And hopefully it will just start working. And so now we have the to-do. And then it prints out, and you cannot see it, but there's a link here. So I can press that, and then hopefully I get to the course that I can then start to correct. So an easy way, instead of clicking all these 8 boxes, I get an overview of what needs to be corrected. If you want to get these booklets, or if you want to talk a little bit more about this, don't hesitate to contact me, or you can go to what's called GitHub. So we are going to GitHub, and then you can go to Emil Folino, and then booklets. Booklets, and there you can see all the booklets that we have created and how we're using it. And the to-do list is there already. And we have a bit of the others for the feedback and the texts and things like that. So if you want to use it, you can start there, and then don't hesitate to come ask me or talk about this. I just want to say thank you for listening. I know it was probably a bit nerdy, but hopefully it also introduced JavaScript as a fun programming language that you can use for more than just showing stupid animations on a web page.
Thank you very much for this talk. This was very interesting, and I can see a lot of use cases for this. I was just wondering about one thing. I'm not too big on web security, but isn't there a risk associated to putting in the authentication token into the bookmarks directly, especially if for some reason the browser bookmarks are synced to some cloud? Wouldn't that result in the token ending up in a cloud verbatim in the worst case?
That could be a risk, yeah.
Okay. So deactivating bookmark synchronization is probably recommended if you use those bookmarks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
And when we upload them here to GitHub, I always do it like this, where we clean out the token from the code, and then that's more or less what you have to do if you want to use it. Just insert your own token here, and then paste it into the bookmark in the web browser. Oscar from IT sends a hälsning. That's always that you have to take care of these API keys. Don't share them.
There's another authentication approach, 082.
Yeah.
Have you tried that?
Nope.
Because that would probably be better
Yeah.
because you don't share the keys.
Yeah. I haven't tried it. Nope. When it's created in the Canvas app for teacher app, they are using the keys as well, the tokens as well. So the Canvas teacher app is using the tokens, not the OAuth. So yeah. I think we'll end it here then.